I just want to, Minister, pick up one comment you made. You said all cultures are welcome. Are you sure you want to stick with all cultures are welcome, even those that are explicitly hostile to most British values?
It's a good question. Look, I say all cultures are welcome, but of course they have to integrate, and I put emphasis on that in the answers that I've given so far. And if people don't abide by British values and the way we live our lives, then of course that is not welcome. For example, we've seen cases of sexual assault that in the countries they've come from may have been deemed normalised. So that sort of thing is absolutely not welcome in this country. But of course there are elements of all cultures that are absolutely fantastic, and I personally welcome them here. To sort of put an image behind this, one of the things that makes me so proud to be British is a street party, and you've got your Victoria sponge, but you've also got your jerk chicken. You've got your Caribbean music, and you've got the White Cliffs of Dover playing. I think we can live together and unite. But of course, the bad bits of any culture is not welcome.
Lord Dobbs. All right, sorry. Okay.
Could I ask through you if Mr. Dobbs could write to the committee setting out in detail that calculation and the assumptions underlying it to reach to the figure that the Home Secretary's quoted? I think that would be very helpful.
I think the methodology was published alongside the figure, and the Migration Advisories Committee Fiscal Impacts of Migration is a published document.
Okay,
thank you.
Draw our attention to it. Nevertheless, that would be very helpful. Just before we move on, Minister, your title is Minister for Migration and Citizenship. How much do you value citizenship over indefinite leave to remain?
I value citizenship. It's an honour to be a citizen of our great country. At the same time, it's very much a personal choice, in my view, as to whether a person wants to become a citizen.
So do you think the government should be doing more to promote citizenship and even think about what the benefits of citizenship should be in comparison to ILR?
I think we have seen a 15% increase in citizenship applications this year 2025 compared to 2024. So it is increasing. And for me, encouraging citizenship actually comes from rebuilding our great nation to where we have been in the past, and ensuring that the public can unite. And what we're doing in the Home Office, and a part of my role, and Minister Norris, the other immigration minister, and of course the Home Secretary, is to set the conditions for that to thrive and take away the at times poisonous environment that has been partly caused by unprecedented levels of migration and a pace of change that has been too fast for the country.
What specifically are you doing to promote citizenship?
Specifically, my view is that it is the decision of the individual to make that choice. Wider, promoting citizenship is rebuilding our nation and making it great again.
Sorry, why does that not just apply to all the people who are in this country, whether they're seeking ILR, have got ILR, whatever? What are you doing specifically to promote that extra stage, which requires various hurdles to be overcome? What are you doing to promote it?
My view on that is that is very much a personal choice, and we have seen this
so you're not doing
increase.
Anything?
Well, there's nothing specific to promote that.
So nothing is being done to promote citizenship by the government?
I think every day I'm promoting citizenship by working hard to make our country what it has been in the past.
Okay. Baroness Burton.
Moving on to perhaps another slightly controversial topic is data, or perhaps more accurately lack of. Is the Home Office, and I think this is perhaps for both of you, is the Home Office satisfied with the collection of exit data in the UK?
Yeah, one of the frustrations in the Home Office, and I'm sure other departments as well, is the quality of data that we hold, and that's an inheritance that we're working hard behind the scenes to fix. The digitisation of our border, e-visas, for example, ETAs, and the future digitisation that we're bringing in will help with this. But I won't go into the exact methods that we're looking at the moment, because there's still a lot of decisions to be made there. But I certainly recognise the challenges that we face by not having as much quality data as we'd wish to have.
But so just a very direct question. Do you, as the Home Office and the Minister, know how many people and who are in the country at any given time?
This is one of the issues. We don't, and there are gaps in our data there that we're working hard to fix.
And I do accept that you can't say absolutely, in 2 months' time we'll know that figure. But I mean, the sort of urgency around knowing that data, I think surely you would accept is very, very important, because it fuels levels of uncertainty and allows narratives, perhaps very damaging narratives, to take hold.
I agree, and one of the issues we have is we don't know often who's left over the last decade or so. So it's really difficult to quantify, but I assure you we are working at that.
Can I just ask, do you need more powers to be able to do that, do you think?
No, I mean, some elements of the UK border make that more difficult than others in terms of how people can leave the country. But as the Minister said, we're working hard through our digitisation of the border, the delivery of our e-visa and the electronic travel authorisation to improve our data capability. But as the Minister said, there's further work to up our capability.
But that all relates to people coming and going now and in the future. But in the past, we know that many thousands of people came and didn't leave. I speak as an ex-DWP minister. That's how I know. I should say that.
And you're right. There's lots to do around filling these data gaps. In the meantime, we're working hard to combat illegal work, for example. That's increased by around 60% over the last since we came to government. We're also looking to deport and remove more than we've seen, in around a decade. We're at around 60,000 now, and we're pushing harder. We will not stop where we are now, and it's important to us that if you don't have a right to be here, then you should be removed or deported.
Lord Hogan, how?
Yeah, it's just pursuing this same point, really, which is we've had evidence from ex-Home Office people who pointed out that there is a gap in data, but really there's a gap in a strategy that asks for that data. So there's no exit strategy, no exit check, because no one asked for it. What I've not heard clearly yet is whether this government has that expectation, because without that expectation they'll never collect the data. And the consequences are profound, whether it be criminality and other things that, mainly the pressure on social services, etc. Is there that clarity in government that we want that data? Who's leaving and who's entering? Because some of it, I take the point that your colleague makes, which is that some of it's hard to obtain, but a lot of it isn't. And the symptoms of this problem are all over.
Yeah. It's something we're working at, absolutely. Yes.
Could I just ask one final follow-up? So if you come back to this committee in 6 months, will you have a clear idea of who's in this country?
I will not put timeframes on this because of the complexities around it, but I can assure you that is being worked at.
Ernest Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Minister. Looking at the proposal to extend the period of time before people can get ILR or settlement, has the government done any modelling of the number and profile of people who will be on those longer routes to settlement for the next 10 years or more? And if it has, what assessment has been made of the likely impacts on integration and cohesion?
There are impact assessments developing, but because we are just finished the consultation and there's still many decisions to be made, that is not finalised. But of course, that has been and will be considered and published for yourselves to see as well.
I'd be interested to know on what basis those assessments have been done, because those people who'll be on longer routes to settlement if this proposal goes through obviously will have no recourse to public funds. And at the moment, the Migratory Observatory tells us that there is almost no statistical evidence on at all on people with no recourse to public funds, what they're doing, what benefits they're claiming, what their situations are. So I'm just floundering to wonder on what basis has the government's assessments been made, given that there's no evidence at the moment as to what's happening with people on that in that situation.
We do know that a significant number can settle over the next few years if we don't make these changes, and it doesn't need data to summarize or to conclude that some of those will likely need welfare benefits and housing, and because the numbers are so high at this time that could settle, and the welfare bill is so high and housing is in short supply, it will have a negative impact on the country if we don't make these changes.
When I'm putting to you, and I'm querying really your very alarmist, if I may say, and catastrophic language about all of this. The Home Office doesn't have the data at the moment about what people with no recourse to public funds are doing. Also, it doesn't have the data about what people do when they do acquire ILR. There's no data about what their benefit contributions are, their fiscal contributions. So again, I ask you, on what basis is the government making its assessments of the future when it's got no data about the past?
There is some data about the past. You're right that there are gaps in that, but the full impact assessment will, of course, be published at the right time when all decisions are made.
It all seems very flaky to me, Minister, if I can put it to you in those terms. I haven't finished yet, Baroness Buston, thanks. Yes. Just finally, another question. A number of organisations have called for an annual migration plan. Can you tell us what the government's view on that proposal would be?
We're making the most sweeping changes in a generation to migration, and that's needed. But of course, like I said earlier, the challenges we face as a nation are what we have to respond to as a government, and that is under continuous review depending on what hand we're dealt.
Okay, again, you're making these claims about the scale of the impact on various aspects of our society, and yet I can't see much evidence for you to make those claims, and that's what I've been trying to get out from you, what the evidence is that you've been drawing on to be able to make those claims, and you haven't convinced me yet, Minister, I'm afraid.
That's fair. I mean, look, we're of course, in your rights to disagree, but we have to listen to what people are saying, what people are seeing, the issues around some lack of integration and contribution, and the division that has and is stoking. And our mission is to overcome that, so that as a nation there isn't this opportunity to exploit and in some instances turn to racism. And for me, that's really important. And these are challenges that we see as a nation, that we have the figures around how many people have come here in such a short period of time. That pace and scale of change is unprecedented. That is a fact. And we need to slow that down, but at the same time, we need to form an immigration system that encourages integration and contribution so that we can unite as a nation.
Isn't it the case, Minister, that when you say you're listening to public voices, that the public really don't have any more information than, frankly, we have, and that a lot of their thinking about these issues is based on myth and story rather than direct, clear data, which we simply don't have? And is it also not the case that you've just said that we're in an unprecedented situation, and yet we know that the figures have now gone down very dramatically? You didn't mention that. You just sat and said, oh, we're responding to this huge increase. You didn't say we're responding to this very significant reduction.
There is clear data on
that's the bit where there is data, and the data shows that the figures have gone down very dramatically.
They have gone down, but that doesn't negate the fact that there was unprecedented arrivals during a very short period of time, which the general public have struggled with that pace and scale of change, as have our systems, our infrastructure, and it's important. It's our responsibility to deal with that. But of course, without forgetting our fundamentals of what it means to be British, and that compassion that is built into the system that we're forming, and looking at safe and legal, for example, on the illegal side of things to help combat that. So there's a lot of work being done across the board here, but there is clear data on numbers of arrivals into the country.
Okay. Look, I know Baroness Buscombe wants to come in, but I'm going to ask you to just hold for a minute, because I want to stick on this theme of the data, impact assessments and so on, and just move to Lord Tapp first, so we can cover, and then bring Baroness Buscombe.
My question is about impact assessments. What is the Home Office approach to producing impact assessments?
When decisions are made and rules are changed, legislation is laid, impact assessments will be published.
Always?
You may be referring to the specific impact assessment last year, that there was a delay producing. Is that correct?
Go on. Tell us about it.
And look, that there was a delay to that because there were some complexities around behaviours that we needed to work out and iron out, essentially, and it was published in December last year, a little later than we would have hoped, or I imagine you would have hoped to.
Should impact assessments be produced with white papers?
I think impact assessments should be produced when decisions are made and when changes are made.
Not with white papers. But they're not, white papers are not necessarily decisions yet, are they?
No, I mean, my view is that impact assessments should be published when decisions are made.
So you would have a white paper that the public read, respond to, and are not provided with data about the impact of the recommendations they're asked to comment on.
Impact assessments are produced when the decisions are made. And
you've said that. I'm asking the question, do you think it is right to invite the public to respond, and other politicians as well, to respond to white paper proposals when they are not given the impact assessment of the impact of those particular proposals, to help them inform their view as to whether they support them or they reject them?
I think if we look at the latest white paper, that a part of the idea of a consultation is of course to learn more about the impacts so that we can make the right decisions. So in my view, to put an impact assessment before decisions are made and when we're consulting may well skew that process slightly.
Isn't an impact assessment part of the decision-making process? It's what leads you to making a well-informed decision, isn't it?
It certainly is. I think the debate we're having
is it only after you've made the decision.
I think the debate here is at what point do we produce it, and I think we're in the right place at producing an impact assessment when a decision is made, because before that you're still assessing and analysing that impact, and a consultation should be a part of that. Is there anything to add?
Yeah, so just to say that we bring forward the impact assessments to the point of either legislation, be that immigration rules or other legislation. I think for the package on Thursday we published full impact assessments alongside that. The earned settlement paper also did include a significant chapter around data on what was happening in terms of flows, predictions around contributions, predictions around settlement. So there was a clear evidence and data base to inform that decision. But as the Minister said, the government can't prejudge a consultation, otherwise you're getting ahead. So to fully model the exact impacts when you are consulting, so there's very open consultation around transitional provisions, whether there should be any exemptions for certain groups. That means any impact assessment is subject to those changes, and the government can't preempt those changes.
What, in term particularly, to what was the rationale for separating out main applicants and dependents rather than treating applicants and their dependents as part of a cohesive whole, the family whole, if you like?
The point of consultation is to ensure we do iron out any changes that we're looking at making and hear all views. So a lot in the settlement plans, the decisions simply haven't been made.
Okay. What assessment has been made of introducing settlement changes to BNO and family visa holders?
We've already announced that they are exempt from the 10-year extension, and the other decisions are at consultation. I've met with numerous stakeholders to talk about the impact of minimum impact requirements, for example, and decisions are still being made on those aspects.
Okay. What assessment has been made of changes to the statutory duty to support refugees?
Sorry, start the question again, sorry.
Right. What assessment has been made of the changes to the statutory duty to support refugees?
Yeah.
Want me to come in? So that's actually asylum seekers, so it's revoking what is EU legislation and a directive that is a legacy legislation where the Secretary of State was under a duty to move it to a power, so that brings it back to domestic legislation. So it's the duty to support asylum seekers who would otherwise be destitute. The focus here is in ensuring that where people can work or where they have other means to support themselves, there is not a duty on the taxpayer and the state to support those individuals. That's set out in the explanatory memorandum, I think, that accompanied the rules changes the statutory instrument that's being brought forward and then commences from June. But it's to deal with a very specific issue where there are people in asylum supported accommodation at the cost of the taxpayer who have a right to work, or to ensure that the government can remove support where people are involved in criminality or non-compliance with the asylum process, because the government's position is those people shouldn't be supported at the cost of the taxpayer where they're not complying with the rules.
You've probably seen stories in the media around individuals in hotels who are also driving Audi A4s and receiving money from home. So it's partly dealing with that abuse as well.